The Chamber is very pleased to host this forum with leaders from the Iowa City Community School District to talk about the condition of our district, and I know there'll be discussion about the general obligations bond as part of that discussion. So the Chamber, for as long as I've been involved with the Chamber in this community, has been deeply interested in the quality of education in the Iowa City area. We think there's a natural connection between a vibrant business community and quality education at all levels, and especially at the foundational level with strong public schools. So it's a natural for us as a business community to support activities such as this. I want to just let you know about a couple of activities, specific activities that the Chamber sponsors. Upcoming next month will be the annual Excellence in Education Awards ceremony, where administrators and teachers are recognized for their outstanding accomplishments during the course of the year. That's on Wednesday, April 26th at the school district administrative offices. Then every fall, we're very proud to host the New Teacher Luncheon, when scores of new teachers come into our district and fill those seats that are made vacant by retirements every year. So that's a wonderful event that we're proud to be part of. The Chamber also is involved in promoting quality public education at the legislative level. We've been actively involved in lobbying for stronger funding for STEM and career and technical training in Des Moines, and we partner with others in the corridor, such as the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance in that regard. Again, strong, and the lead point in our legislative agenda has long been strong funding for public education. We think that's critical. So the format today is we're going to have a presentation from leaders from the school district. We're pleased to have Chris Lynch, who's the chair of the Iowa City Community School District Board of Directors, and Steve Murley, who is the superintendent. Other board members are available too that may participate, I'm not sure, and answer questions. So the presentation will take maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, and then we'll take questions after that. So without further introduction, I'll turn the program over to Chris Lynch.
Well, thanks, Tim. I wanted to start by thanking you for your volunteerism when you were on the Iowa City School Board. And I want to thank the Chamber for the opportunity to present today. As Tim said, we're going to do a relatively high-level overview of state of education in the district. And I'll keep my comments relatively high level. If you get us started, we could talk all day about education. And I think we want to keep it to about 30, 45 minutes. And I'll just hit a few of the highlights. I'm not going to talk everything on the slide. You can read the slides faster than I can talk them in most cases. So just starting with some overview results of the district. I always like to start with some outcome results. And when you look at our outcome results, they're really excellent. Let's start at the high school level. So this is pretty amazing. In our district, by the time our kids get to high school, and if you stick with our district, you do very well. By the time our kids get to high school, 2/3 of our kids, our students, are in the top quarter of the nation. All right, that's a pretty amazing fact. 2/3 of our kids are in the top quarter of our nation. So I want to start with a homework assignment for those in the audience today. And if you watch this on TV, you know, start with a homework assignment. If you know an average student in the Iowa City Community School District, please let them know they're in the top quarter of the nation. Our average students are not average. They're in the top quarter of the nation, and they'll go on to do very well in whatever they want to do going forward post-high school. As most people know, City and West are both ranked top 5 in the state and are both recognized top of the nation. We expect next year we'll have 3 high schools in the top 5. I could go on and on about the stats at the high school level. This year we had record enrollment in ACT testing, had very high results at 25.4. We could just go on and on. I couldn't be any prouder of our high school students and their academic results and their leadership results. This year, too, it's the second year in Kirkwood Regional Center. We had a 56% increase in attendance at the Regional Center. It's a great asset to our community. So thank you to Kirkwood, thank you to the University of Iowa, and thanks to the districts that participate in making that happening and really leveraging our scale as a region. And this year, a record number. So we had 3,133 students enrolled in technical and career classes. That's just amazing. Now, some of these are required. Many of them are, you have to sign up to take them. And I think it's a good test of, are kids interested in the curriculum? Are the kids interested in what we're offering? And I think the answer is yes when you start to have record enrollment, and we'll continue to drive that and continue to work that both in our schools and also with Kirkwood. Looking at some of the literacy gains, again, I'll just hit a couple highlights. We've seen great improvements in reading. I'll talk about why that's very important in a couple slides, but this year we've seen some of our proficiencies versus last winter go up 4.5%. And what I'm most excited about is our FRL, or low economic students, have outpaced that improvement and improved 7%. And again, I'll talk about why that's really important, but that's really where we want to see the most improvement as we move forward in the district. But great improvements in reading. We have a strategic plan. We spent a lot of time as a board working on this with administration, developing our district goals and the action plan that will deliver the academic outcomes we're looking for. There's basically three primary goals. One is we want to improve reading proficiency. I think it's a little bit obvious in terms of why you'd want to drive reading, but from kindergarten to grade 3, you learn to read, and then for the rest of your life, you read to learn, right? It's just a critical foundation. While our results are very, very good in general, we've got lots of opportunities here. So about 75% of our kids are proficient in reading. We need that to be higher. And when you peel back the results, you'll just find we have opportunities in very specific areas, specifically with our low income families, specifically with our ELL program. That's the students that English isn't their first language, and with special ed. Then within that, we've got some opportunities when you look at some of our demographics. So for example, our African-American students, the proficiency needs to be higher. Our Latino students, the proficiency just needs to be higher. Now, some of these opportunities have been around for decades. Some of them aren't new. We're absolutely committed to breaking some of these historic trends and drive academic performance going forward. So 3 goals: improve reading, improve math. Math is the foundation of all future problem solving, so you need to have a good foundation of math. And then the third goal is to improve educational experiences for all of our kids and make sure we're culturally inclusive and responsive environments. We really just want a school environment that all of our kids can succeed. Now with that, we've developed a very specific and comprehensive plan. The next 3 slides are on a one-pager in terms of our action plan, but if I put a one-pager up here, you wouldn't be able to read it, so I'm going to take you through the key elements of our plan. These are improvements that we are driving across all of our students, and specifically focused on, again, the areas with the most opportunity, which would be special ed, ELL, our low economic students, and then just looking at some of our cultural opportunities, diversity opportunities. So all these are focused on driving improvement in those areas. I'll just highlight a couple. We're in the second year of adding 50 hours of instruction to the elementary level program. Again, usually when you make these changes, it takes a couple years to see the results. We're just barely in year 2. And thanks to the weather, we've had a full 50 hours, unless we have some snow in late March here. We're gonna have another full 50 plus hours at the elementary level this year. And then you'll just see lots of supports. So multi-tiered supports, academic supports, intervention supports. At the high school and junior high level, we've introduced intervention and enrichment periods, which allow all of our students to either improve their proficiency or work on enrichment opportunities. That's been exciting. In terms of classroom support, I'll start with our free and reduced lunch students. We've introduced the weighted resource model. So if you ever see RAM or the WRAM up there, it's a weighted resource model. I'm just going to suggest this is probably the biggest, most significant school board policy focused specifically on education ever. I'm glad to debate that with anybody. But it's pretty simple. We put the resources where the opportunities at. So we have schools with bigger opportunities, and we put more resources in those schools. And here's the deal, we're seeing results. All right, we've seen results in the climate, we've seen results in the classroom atmosphere, we're seeing results in reading, math, and we're just seeing, improved educational opportunities. Very exciting. So I think the weighted resource model, I can't wait to get into year 2 and 3 because we're really going to see the benefits of that policy. I'll just point out also discretionary busing. Usually, you hear the news is always exciting. You always see it in the paper when there's negative news. So, we've eliminated a lot of discretionary busing. But what doesn't get communicated is we actually added quite a bit of discretionary busing to our students that have the highest barriers to transportation. And that's been a great success. And we've heard that. And it's resulted in increased attendance. We know that attendance is very strongly linked to academic outcomes. You can't teach the kids if they're not in the classroom. And we've absolutely seen an improvement in attendance. So that's been outstanding. On the cultural front, lots of great work on cultural competency. I'm really excited about the implicit bias training that we're in a 3-year process of rolling out. Again, that's just helping us all understand the biases that we all have. Restorative justice is very exciting, driving accountability in a way that really restores and keeps kids out of the judicial system. And then we've got AVID pilot, which if there's questions after, Steve can go into detail, but we're doing a pilot at Kirkwood that looks very exciting, and we're looking to scale that up next year. So again, it's really a cultural competent programming that's helping us reach out and connect with all of our students and driving educational outcomes. Special ed, you'll see a lot on differentiated curriculum, differentiated service, specific instructional design strategies. Seen some great work in special ed. I'll talk a little more about our opportunities in special ed later. English language learners, the sheltered instruction observation protocol. It's been absolutely outstanding protocol working with our kids where English is not their first language, but this has also been good and rolled out beyond those classrooms, and it's really been a great opportunity to train on how to connect with students across the district. And then we just continue to expand our ELL program. So every time we've expanded ELL and localized it into schools, we find that we get 50 to 100% more interest than we thought was there. So just continuing to localize the ELL programming has been a huge opportunity. Probably the last thing I should say in all this, just so you know, when you look at the trends over the last 5-10 years, so last 10 years, if you think about low economic status, we've had a great increase in low economic status. I think most people know this as the middle class gets squeezed, but our FRL students have gone up from like 28% to 38% over the last decade. Our ELL programming has increased by 5 times over the last 5 years. So there's just a lot more students that are coming with opportunities that we need to help address and help grow proficiency there. Engagement, I'm going to make another bold statement. There's never been a more transparent time in the history of the district in terms of ability to access information and ability to plug into information. Board docs is how we manage our board meetings. It's completely searchable, completely accessible. You can access it from your computer. You can access it from your phone. There's nothing you can't find via board docs. Where in the past it was very hard to search and find historic documents. We have a new website that's a lot easier to use, ADA compliant, a lot of huge improvements. So hopefully people have seen the benefits of that, and we're always willing to hear feedback and make it better. Thought Exchange is our digital platform that allows to get community input. Last time we asked for input, we got 1,700 people who replied. So again, just an amazing tool to get input from our constituents. You also see if we listed all the task force and committees we're running right now, it'd be finance fine up here. There's a lot of committees, but we put a couple up here. Integrated pest management, again, another good example where there was an opportunity. We commissioned a very cross-functional team of experts and people across the district, those most involved in the work, and they're just coming back with outstanding results and recommendations. And we could put the transportation committee up here. We could put exclusion rooms. We could put all sorts of different committees where equity committee. I mean, people are coming back with just great opportunities for improvement. And again, involvement and engagement's really driving better solutions is what I'd say there. Transition program, we've created CAPSTO, which is basically reapplying a PTO to our transitions program. And that stands for Community Agencies, Parents, Students, Teachers Organization. We're going to do the same thing here shortly with our homeschool kids. So again, trying to increase the engagement across the district. In terms of talent, we've been trying to diversify our staff. Our goal is we'd like our staff to reflect the diversity of our students. And for a long time, this has been very flat. It's been a very challenging area to drive improvement. But we've seen really historic improvement over the last couple of years. I'll start from the bottom. Administration, we're up to 12% diversity. Our goal is 15, but for a long time, there's sometimes we're at 0, right? 0, 6%, now we're up to 12%. Support staff, very, very exciting, over 16% versus our goal of 15, and that's a large group, especially when you look at our paras, so we're making outstanding progress there. Again, this is an area we hadn't made progress for a long time. And then teaching is where we need to continue to improve. A little over 5%, the goal is 15. That's the remaining opportunity. But I'm happy to at least see that we're making tremendous progress in a couple areas. Historic progress, really, we just haven't seen in the past. On infrastructure, I just want to point out we've very quietly made significant, again, historic improvements to safety and security, right? I don't think anybody would debate the world's changed. We're in a different environment here. I know when we started talking safety and security, people were worried we're going to lock up our schools. They're going to feel like prisons, or, it's not going to be the same environment. We've quietly made changes that our students don't notice, right? Our students don't notice. So yes, when you go up to a school today, guess what? It's locked. You can only go in one door. The door's going to take you through the office. There's a number of security measures in the office. There's a number of security measures in the school, intercom systems, camera systems, communication systems to handle intruder type situations. But if we listed all the items we've done, there's about 20 items that we've quietly done without impacting the learning environment. It's just the new normal for our students and for our parents. But this has been really breakthrough, and it's something you got to do proactive, right? We never want to be reactive on safety and security, and we've proactively driven huge improvements here. I'm going to have Steve talk about some of the improvements at a few of our schools coming up this next year.
So we are really excited about the work that's going on at Liberty High School. And right now, although I'm looking outside and it's a little gloomy out there and a little rainy, the good news is that we are on track. We are on time and under budget right now, and hopefully stay on time and on budget as we get through to completion here. Our new school opens this fall, 2017, and this is a phased process for us. So there are 3 phases for Liberty High School. And phase 1, which opens this fall, has seating for 1,000 students in the classroom. But I think one of the things that's caused some confusion is that all of the common areas, so the infrastructure that supports the school, so think cafeteria, think auditorium, gymnasium, library, space for guidance counselors, those types of things, those are all actually designed for the full 1,500 student complement that will eventually reside in the school. So we're very confident that we'll be able to handle the students as they move in prior to phase 3, which is the completion of the 500 student addition, which will then give us space for 1,500 students in the classroom seats. So things are looking really good right now. We actually hope to cohabitate with the construction crew in July so that we can get a jump start on moving staff in there. So we're very, very excited about that. I was just out there with a group of community members about 2 weeks ago, and things are looking really good. Putting down gym floor and the terrazzo's getting polished, and we're starting to see some of the ceiling infrastructure move in. A lot of the cabinetry in the classroom, so it's looking fantastic out there. Phase 2 of that process is the outdoor athletic facilities, and we were very deliberate in this process in terms of setting this up as a staged move-in. We are very, very fortunate. We have wonderful municipal partners here in the community, and 2 of those for us are North Liberty and the City of Coralville, and they are going to assist us over the course of the next couple years in helping us provide athletic facilities for our students, whether those are baseball fields, softball fields, opportunities for places for kids to play soccer, et cetera. And so they've been very, very cooperative, very helpful, very forthcoming in helping us set up those opportunities for kids as we move into the full facility to participate athletically over the course of the next 2 years. You'll see some of the numbers up there. Second bullet down, our total cost for the project is $56 million. And then if you look down at the very far bottom, the bottom bullet point on there, total cost at the end to complete that last student addition is another $6 million, and that's funded through the general obligation bond, which we'll talk about shortly. And then the third bullet up from the bottom, the athletic piece is about $12.5 million, and again, that comes through the general obligation bond. So we're really excited about the learning environments out there. One of the things that Chris talked about was our work to equalize learning environments across the community as one of our board goals, and that's something that we took into consideration as a design process for Liberty High School. So we are going to have some great teaching and learning opportunities for students and staff out there. The staff that have already had the opportunity to tour the facility are very excited. They were instrumental in the design of the facility. That's one of the things that we've started doing over the course of the last 5 or 6 years is put teacher teams together, and they work with the design staff to make sure that the work that the architects do reflects the work that happens in the classroom. So we are very pleased with what's going on at Liberty High School and super excited to welcome those kids. If you go out onto American Legion Road, we've got a new elementary school going up there, and people will recognize the theme of the elementary school in the sense of the way that the building is constructed and the learning environments inside, because they look very similar to previous buildings that have gone up, such as Alexander Elementary School. So when you look at the school, again, like Alexander, a two-story school gives us the opportunity to have older kids upstairs, younger kids downstairs, makes very good use of the land, so the footprint of the building is a little bit smaller, gives us lots of space outside for both softscape and hardscape playground for students, adequate parking and traffic management, et cetera, for the neighborhood. So we're really excited about it in terms of size of the school. It'll seat about 500 students out there. I was just looking at some pictures, and again, hopefully the rain doesn't impede this, but they're laying geothermal lines. If you've ever seen that done, that means there's a lot of trenching going on out there, hopefully not a lot of swimming pools right now. And we lay down those geothermal lines, run glycol through there. The beautiful part about that is then during the course of the school year, it's much more efficient for us to operate in terms of heating and cooling. So we're very excited about that. One thing you'll see in our new schools are lots of opportunities for students to be educated in areas with natural lighting. So if you look at the library, if you look at the classrooms, there's some open learning spaces in those buildings, and they have lots and lots of natural lighting. And again, looking at the bottom line there, last bullet point, this is about a $16 million project for us. When you see the indicator there at the end, SAVE, that is the old silo. So from an acronym standpoint, both of those essentially refer to the 1 cent sales tax. And so we are very fortunate. I was one of the few states that had the forethought to put together a plan that would allow districts to provide updates for their learning environments through this 1 cent sales tax. And so we've been working very hard to use those funds to make sure that we not only have the opportunity to build new buildings, but also to do a lot of renovations on current buildings within the system.
Great, thanks, Steve. And again, if just a couple fun facts on, is the facilities master plan historic? I mean, yes, we build a high school about every 50 to 60 years, right? And, if you look at the east side of Iowa City, we hadn't built an elementary since 1970, and now we're building two in 2 years. And again, that's part of making sure we have equitable school environments across the district. In terms of legislative priorities, there's a lot going on. We could spend all morning just talking education at the from Des Moines and at the federal level in Washington. But just quickly, we have three priorities. The first is to provide adequate and timely funding as a first priority. We'd give an F to this at this point. It's been a complete failure. I can't say it any other way in terms of funding for this year at 1.1%. We knew it was going to be a tough year. I think the governor suggested 2%. We probably could have understood that, giving a tough fiscal year in Iowa, but we're just plain underfunded versus where we need to be. I'll give you one fun fact. This is the one I like to remember. If our district had just national average funding, I'm not talking top national funding, I'm talking average, national average funding, we'd have $21 million more dollars. With $21 million, you could hire 250 teachers. With 250 teachers, you'd add about 10 teachers per school. So if you think about an elementary school, you could add a teacher per grade, K to 6, 7 teachers, right? Reduce classroom size and still have 3 teachers left over for, reading, math, mental health services, whatever, ELL, whatever people need. Or you could add other programming. I mean, that's just the magnitude of the gap between Iowa funding and national average funding. Our second priority is pay or postpone unfunded mandates. We get all sorts of unfunded mandates, maybe good ideas, maybe not, but good ideas that don't come with funding, it's just difficult to execute them. So please don't give us unfunded mandates. And then the third is extend saves. Steve already talked about this. This is the penny tax. It expires in 2029, and we really need it extended to 2049. And we're getting into where it's in the time frame where this is very important and it's urgent. And it's not just urgent for us, it's urgent for all the school districts in Iowa, so it's very important. In terms of opportunities, we've definitely had some opportunities in special ed we've been working on the last year. We've had a very concentrated and focused plan. We've worked that with the Grantwood Education Association, a great collaborative relationship over the last year. We've worked that with the state of Iowa. We've worked that with the Office of Civil Rights. We expect to wrap up here shortly with meeting the expectations of Grantwood. We expect to meet the expectations of the OCR, hopefully next week, right? They'll be visiting us, and then we hope to wrap up with the state by the end of the school year, but certainly by the start of the next school year. And again, great collaborative relationship with those three groups, and we've worked very hard to improve our procedures and meet the needs of our special ed students. We've definitely, I've talked to some, improvements in other areas, but we've seen a great improvement in, reading proficiency up here, a 3% increase in our special ed over a year. And then I just, I always like to highlight, if you talk about best in the nations, we talked our high schools being best in the nations, but I put our transition service center services up against anyone in the nation. It's just a best-in-class organization. We're very proud of our students there and our staff. And we've helped meet their needs by having a stable location. And in fact, we're renovating their location right now. And location has been very important to our transitions students and families. Right now, we're also helping support our families and students impacted by immigration. We're creating a task force to look at, again, we always create a task force or committee when we have an opportunity. This is an area where our community said it's an opportunity. We're creating a task force to look at it, how to best help our students and families work through the current environment. We're developing clear guidelines on immigration and customs enforcement, and then we're making sure we have a good response system. The good news is we've never had, to the best of our knowledge, we've never had any engagement with ICE. And that's the way it should be. By federal law, they shouldn't be engaging through our schools. But we've never had any engagement. But we're just making sure that we're ready in case we do. And again, we're just trying to create a safe environment for all of our kids. That's the benefit of public education. Whoever walks through our doors, we educate. And we really don't care what your background is, what your status is, what your race is, any of your demographics. We are going to do the best we can to provide a world-class education. All right, that's and we could, again, we could talk collective bargaining. We could talk all sorts of opportunities we've been working on, but that's kind of a high-level summary. With that, I'm going to segue, and part of the objective today was to talk facilities master plan and the bond. So I will talk about one community, one bond, moving forward together here, and I think we'll take questions on everything at the end. So facilities master plan. You've heard a little bit about it, but I always like to remind everyone that facilities master plan is about transforming a learning environment. And it's a 10-year plan to improve all our schools, every single school, every single classroom across the district. It's all about meeting our mission statement and our strategic plan. So this will deliver better educational outcomes. And we talked this earlier with the strategic plan to improve reading, improve math, improve educational experiences. And getting our facilities right is absolutely a huge enabler. It's really just supporting our students and our staff. And it's really giving them the facilities to maximize learning. Again, we reviewed earlier, but here's our strategic plan, driving district goals. And again, I'll just point out that infrastructure and talent is a big part of that. And really, we're going to talk the infrastructure part of that as we move forward. Just a reminder, the facilities master plan was really a year-long process. It started in 2012, ended in 2013, at the time, it was the biggest community engagement ever completed. We had over 1,000 people involved. In fact, we had 400 people at a single meeting, which is outstanding. So, when Cedar Rapids goes through their process they're doing right now, I think getting a couple hundred people involved is pretty good. Here you get 400 people at one meeting. That was outstanding. We approved the FMP in December of 2013. Since that, we've had a few updates, and I'll take you through a little bit of this. Again, I always like to just remind people it's transforming the learning environment, really supports our student and staff. We absolutely need this to deliver our programming. So if you think about the space to deliver things like the arts, things like science, we need to deliver sufficient facilities to meet those programming needs. The community's definitely told us to get HVAC done, and that's air conditioning basically. It's heating, ventilation, air conditioning, but people really mean air conditioning. They want us to get our capacity right, and they want renovations across the entire district. We'll talk more about this, but this is definitely our opportunity to support public education. I'll hit that at the end. This is something we own. It's something we control, and it's our opportunity to support public education. And we just plain need more space for programming and things like preschool. Another thing we've heard from our our parents is, we want accessibility to preschool, and space is a constraint, and the facilities master plan will help us move forward on that constraint. This is again, just demonstrating the 10-year plan. I'll go through a few components of that later. But as we did community engagement this last January through listening posts, people really told us a couple things. One is keep it simple. And the second thing is stick to the plan. We've got a great plan. It's a 10-year plan. Finish the plan. Keep it simple. Stick to the plan. I talked this a little earlier. We used our Thought Exchange program and digital platform in October, November to get feedback from our constituents on facilities master plan. We had almost 1,700 people participate. And they really, if there was one big theme, it was get air conditioning done. In fact, if you had to do 1, 2, and 3, it was get AC done, get AC done, get AC done. So people really just want to eliminate that being a factor in the learning environment, eliminate it from being a factor that we end up closing school for, and just get it done. Now, the good news I'll tell you in a minute is we do have a plan to get that done. So in the plan, we've got completed projects. You can read faster than I can talk, but we've talked a few. If you haven't seen significant renovations, go to Twain, go to Penn, outstanding. Again, new elementary school in Alexander, added classrooms at City High, Coralville Central. Coralville Central is a great example. Get up on the top floor of Coralville Central on a hot day, man, it's smoking hot. And that's no longer the case, so huge improvement at Coralville Central. There's a number of projects we got funding. We're working on Lucas right now. We're working on the new Hoover right now. We're working on the new Liberty right now. Weber's under construction. West High is just starting phase 1 out there. And then Longfellow will be next year. Longfellow is very exciting because it's one of our historic renovations, the first one. Now, the last 6 years of the program are subject to bond approval. We knew that in 2013, right? We've always had a 10-year plan. We always knew the funding strategy. The funding strategy was always to use SAVE and other sources up front and then do a GO bond in the end. We're just sticking to the plan. If you want to keep it simple and you want to stick to the plan, this is what sticking to the plan looks like. Here's all the schools. There's too many to go through, but trust me, everybody in the district is impacted. Because you see all 3 high schools, you see all 3 junior highs, you see a number of the remaining elementaries. Every student in the district will benefit from finishing the remainder of the plan. If you want to know what the improvements are at your school, we've got one-pagers on our website, and we'll have them at our schools in terms of what the improvements are. It'll talk about the improvement at your elementary school. It'll talk the improvements at your junior high and the improvements at your high school. Again, just helping people understand what the improvement will be for their students, especially if you have younger students. Again, historic renovations, it's a major undertaking, and I think this is probably one of the best examples of supporting our neighborhood schools. So if you want to talk about investments in schools, investments in neighborhoods, I think look to these historic renovations. It's our commitment to these schools, and when you think about that, you can think about Longfellow, you can think about Mann, Lincoln, but man, the plans to do the historic renovation at Longfellow are just beautiful. Maintaining the historic nature of the building while building in 21st century classrooms, and it's going to be just amazing. And that'll happen next year. The other thing we've heard from parents is we don't want students in temporaries. And just so you know, if we had not started the facilities master plan in 2013 when we did, by the end of this in 2023, 40% of our students would have been temporaries. I mean, we're growing at a very fast pace. We need to keep pace with capacity. We already had a lot of kids in temporaries or portables. In fact, we had 2 elementary schools worth of students in portables, and we're just trying to put an end to that. We really want 0 students, at least from a homeroom standpoint, in any temporary classrooms. And this plan delivers that. So 0 temporaries or portables by 2023. Again, the good news on HVAC, we have a plan to complete, and we're very close to completing. So we can have 100% of our elementaries with air conditioning by 2019. So close. We're so close. We just need to stick to the plan. We're going to have our junior highs done by 2020. We're going to have our high schools done by 2021. Again, so close. We've been working this as fast as possible. I can tell you when we started this, it was like 77% of our elementaries. So we've made historic improvement very fast. We're doing it as fast as we can. Stick to the plan, get it done. All right, I'm going to segue and talk a little bit about the GO bond because, again, we've already talked. The next 6 years are dependent on the GO bond. Finishing the plan is contingent on the GO bond sticking to the plan. It's contingent to the plan. So the GO bond is 191 million to finish the plan. It's basically in line with the expectations. Here's what I think the good news is. So when you start talking a tax rate standpoint, if you looked at the total tax rate impact, it could be a $1.96. Now here's the good news. We strategically set up some of our borrowing that it's going to expire in 2017. So we're going to have 53 cents of bond debt expiring as we bring on this new debt. We've also been working to get healthy cash reserves, and we are to the point now where that is getting healthy. We need one more year to open Liberty, but then we think we can reduce, we know we can reduce the tax rate by 45 cents, reducing our cash reserves. And then property valuation growth, as our property values increase, the tax rate of the debt goes down, and we think we can get this whole thing done the next 6 years for under $1.93, which you need to decide if that's a good deal or not, and from a tax rate, whether that works for you, but I'd suggest that's a pretty good deal. And I just tell you, we as a board have worked hard to get this down to a lowest number possible, and 93 cents I think is pretty good. Here's the other good news. The 93 cents is a peak. It's a one-year peak, and it'll continue to go down over time. And it continues to go down, as I said, as property values increase. So you'd peak out at 93 cents. Just for perspective, that'd be $4 a month for every 100,000 evaluation. So I think that's a pretty reasonable ask based on what we're providing in terms of learning environment. Again, it declines over time with property value. If you look at the next 10-year average, it'd be an increase of 60 cents. If you look at we break even at 15 years. So 15 years from now, we could be at the same tax rate we are today. And again, I'll just remind you, the school district is only 36% of your total tax bill. By the way, over time, over history, that's come down. It wasn't that long ago, it was 42%. So again, we've been very mindful of our tax rate, and it's gone down over time. Also, when you look at the rest of Iowa, I'm showing you here the top 10 districts across Iowa. We're the 5th largest district in Iowa, and when you look at the tax rate of the top 10, we're number 10. So we have the lowest tax rate of the top 10. Now, if you look at the details, not only do we have the lowest, but we're $1 lower than number 9. $1 lower than number 9. So we can do this bond and still be number 10. We can do this bond and still be the lowest tax rate of the top 10 districts in Iowa. All right, I think that's pretty amazing. So now, a few frequently asked questions, and we'll get some more questions at the end, but is this a state record for GO bond? So the answer is kind of yes and no. So yes, it's from a dollar standpoint, 191 is going to be a record. But what I'd tell you is districts don't have 10-year facilities master plans, and they don't have a comprehensive plan that goes and asks for the next 6 years. Right, you're doing kind of a project at a time type of thing. That's what we've tried to get away from, doing a project at a time. This is a comprehensive plan, so the dollar value is a record. What's not a record is the tax rate. We just talked that. When we do this bond at 93, even at the $1.96, there'll be 90 districts that have a higher debt tax rate than we do. 90 districts out of like 335. So a quarter of the districts will have higher tax rate than us. And we already talked about, ways that we can reduce that over time. So again, when you think about it, us being the 5th largest district, when you think about the tax rate, it's not as big an ask as what some other districts in Iowa are doing. Is the GO bond a blank check? The answer is no. I mean, we're very specific about the projects that are completed. We're very specific about the money. In fact, it's really the opposite. It helps lock in the plan, right? We just reviewed the details of the plan. That's an implicit promise to execute that plan. What happens if the bond doesn't pass? A few things. One is, I think you can pretty much expect progress to stop. Now, some people may say, hey, it'll only stop for a year and you come back with a different plan. Well, maybe. I think the other thing, maybe one of the next 8 projects should go forward, although I'll tell you, as I look at that, I'm more and more pessimistic about that. I think we absolutely need this to pass, to go, to continue with progress. The other thing I'll just tell you is, we've talked this since the beginning. Construction inflation is one of the biggest challenges for us. And when construction inflation is 3 to 5%, if you delay for a year, $191 million worth of projects at 3 to 5%, that's $5 to $9 million of construction inflation. Why am I using a year? Because if you even lose 6 months, you've lost a construction year, right? You've lost a construction cycle. Now, here's the other, are interest rates going up or down? They're going up, right? They're not, I'd love them if they stayed flat. It's been great, but they're going up. A half point increase, if you just wait a year and the interest rate goes up a half point, it's going to be $11 million over the life of the debt. So if you assume a construction inflation at 5%, $9 million, and a half point increase in inflation, you could be talking $20 million increase. So I'd suggest getting it done fast. And we've talked this since the beginning. Getting it done sooner than later is cheaper. Getting it done while the cost of borrowing is low is cheaper than waiting till later. So I think it's high risk, and you'll see a full stop, and that's just the way it is. I'm just being frank with everybody. Okay, in terms of voting information, before I do that, again, I'll just say, I'll just be frank. I think, education's under attack from certainly Des Moines. I think Washington. It's a challenging time for education in Iowa. This is something we control. We don't need Washington. We don't need Des Moines on this GO bond. We control this. So I think it's really a question of, do we support our students and staff? Do we support public education? Do we support moving forward? Do we support putting an education program in place that's going to support our future economy, our future students? And the answer is, again, we have the opportunity on September 12th. Everybody in the district can vote, and we need a 60% majority to move forward. And this is our opportunity to support our students and staff, to support public education in Iowa. And we'll leave that choice up to the public, but I look forward to that voting day. And with that, that is the presentation, and we'd be happy to ask Tim about questions.
Well, thanks, Chris, for that presentation. I think the first thing I'd want to ask you is, there's so much information in that presentation, that some of which went by quickly. How would someone watching this program, or a citizen who between now and next September wants to learn more, how would they go about doing that?
Well, the first thing is we're trying to get all these materials on our webpage. So some of them are there, some aren't. Some of them are still in development. We've been dry running this. We're trying to see what's effective, what's not effective. So our webpage will be the first place. We're certainly very open to coming and talking to anybody who wants to talk it. So if you have a group of people, just get in contact with any board member, or there will be people campaigning as well. And if you get in contact with any of them, and we're happy to come and talk to you about it. And
I asked Superintendent Murley before the program started how many of these presentations you thought you might be giving, and he laughed. And I think you're willing to go out and present this information to pretty much anybody who wants to hear it, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think, we're already presenting it 2 or 3 times a week, and I would expect that only to increase. When I say we, it's various board members, it's administration, it's all the above. But yeah, we're more than happy to come and talk about it.
So the first question I want to ask you, because there's this obvious contrast, right? There's this shortfall in the money that's coming from Des Moines to support general education. I think you commented that it was 1% this year. And that's not the first year that schools, and it's not just the Iowa City schools, but schools across the state have received very, very minimal increases, if any increase, in support for paying teachers and doing the programming that the district wants to do. And then the contrast with this, which is such a large amount of money. And I wonder if you could comment on that. I think one concern people might have is, well, if we have more schools, we're going to need more resources to put teachers into those schools. And how are we going to maintain these schools and provide educational opportunities in the buildings?
Well, the short answer, and I'll hand it off to anyone else who wants to chime in, but if you have the students, we can afford the schools. So if we have the students, we can afford, that's just how funding works.
Would you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. So, if we have, 500 more students next year or 400 new students next year, we can afford to open the next elementary and operate it like we operate every other, facility. Now, I'll also tell you, this board and past boards have made tough decisions on, reducing our operational costs and trying to put more money into the classroom. So it's very important for things like the facilities master plan to drive efficient schools. We talked geothermal, we talked, more efficient lighting. When we go renovate a man, it's going to be, even though the building will be bigger, it'll be cheaper to heat it, to air condition it, to light it. New windows are a big part of what we're doing. So everything we do needs to be more efficient. And in fact, I didn't mention this if the bond fails, but I'd be concerned if the bond fails that we're not driving operational efficiencies that will put increased pressure on the general bond, or general funding, sorry. Yeah, and I'll hand it off to Steve or.
Maybe one thing to note, I was talking to Tim at the beginning, if you go out to the Liberty High School website, one of the things you'll see on the left-hand side is the hiring process for the new teachers out there. And if you go and you scroll through the Facebook feed on there, you'll see each of the new teachers. Scott's been posting them as they join the team. And you'll see that they come from other schools. They come from City High, they come from West High, they come from our junior high schools. And so when we move 700 students out to the new high school, we'll be moving teachers and support staff with them. So in some cases, it's not necessarily that we're hiring new staff, it's that we're moving staff as we look to open those facilities. I'd echo Chris's comments about the efficiency piece. One of the things that we've been very fortunate, and I know it doesn't get a lot of attention out there, but we've gotten some enormous checks from our utility providers because of the energy efficient installations that we're doing in our buildings. So not only are we getting some of that money back up front as we go through and do that renovation work, but then, as Chris said, we're getting some really long-term savings on that because the operational costs go down so substantially. So those are a couple of things that are really important to take into consideration.
So just to jump on some of the comments that Superintendent Murley and Director Lynch said. Number one, just to reiterate, Tim, I know you know this from your time involved with the school district, is that the funding for our programs and the funding for our teachers and the funding for our transportation and so the general fund, that comes on a per pupil basis. So as we continue to grow as a growing district, the funds that come help us support the students that we have. So what I hear in your question, and I've heard this question before, is that, well, are we building buildings to have empty classrooms that we can't afford to staff? That's absolutely not the case, because the funding for what happens in the classroom comes based on our enrollment, and we continue to grow at record numbers. We're the third fastest growing district in the state. Now, if we were some of the other districts that have declining enrollment or static enrollment, that would be an issue, but we continue to grow in leaps and bounds, which growth is good for our district, but growth means that we need more space. The second thing is and Superintendent Murley mentioned this, some of the rebate checks. When you put in geothermal in your house, you qualify for a rebate check. Well, that applies to the school district as well. And a perfect example is the new Liberty High School. The division between where the athletic facilities are planned for and where the building is placed, there was significant incentive for us to put the building where it is and the facilities where they are, because there's actually two different providers for power in that area between So it's every step of the way we've been looking at increasing efficiency, and you're right, Chris, in that during our time there's been some very difficult decisions to make, but whether it's the bell schedule or busing or whatever, we basically tried to increase our efficiency and make sure that those dollars are going to our programs and our teachers and students.
Yeah, there won't be any empty classrooms either. I just want to dispel that's like a myth and just, it's like fake news, misinformation. Because, between programming and just the number of kids we have, and again, we're still in portables and we need to get out of them. And you're just less efficient, right? I mean, and some efficiency gains is, we lose staff time that should be teaching. Sometimes you're losing student time where you should be teaching when you're having to transition to a portable. Or I'll just give you another example in our schools. When I go into them and you're sharing a gym and a lunchroom, man, it's unbelievable how much time is lost between staff and students and just the transitions that need to happen. And we just need to eliminate that and put the kids in the classroom, put the teachers in the classroom, and again, put all our resources in the classroom.
So another question I wanted to ask you, and I know part of what drives this is you've mentioned the growth in the district we need more classrooms for the kids that we know are coming. So I know that's a driver. But at the beginning, Chris, you talked about the achievement that our kids are in and the pride I think that we should take as a community in the strong achievement we've had. Could you comment on, I mean, I think because the hope of the community would be if we're going to spend this kind of money, we hope that it's going to support outcomes for kids. So, and I know that there'll be many people in the district who will think, oh, you know, I went to a school that didn't have air conditioning. My learning environment wasn't as nice as some of these newer learning environments that I think that. So, could you comment on that? How important are these improvements to the outcomes that we want to achieve for the kids?
So, I mean, I always like real results or real outcomes. And so I'll just give you an example, Tim. I think this, you know, we've seen this across the district, but so at Twain, we did a complete renovation. We added music art rooms. We added a gym. And immediately, what we were hearing from our staff was the art was better. Now, how could it be that you go from one facility to another facility, same kids, the art's better? And it's just when the environment is conducive to creativity, when it's conducive to doing art, the art's better. It just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? When you're in a creative environment. You know, the next example I'll give you, if you just get into a 21st century classroom, the use of natural light, the feel and how the lighting works, how technology is used easily. And again, you're just back to it's the design elements that help enhance learning and help enhance the use of technology, and just those are all the elements we're talking about. So I think when you go from a classroom, if you get into one of our newer classrooms that's just well lit, you know, air conditioned, it's very different than going into one of our older classrooms where that's not the case, and you're absolutely going to impact learning outcomes. Now, I'm going to talk to when we were kids, maybe you had a wall unit or like a window unit in your house. There wasn't really air conditioning, period. You know, I think we got to remember that as a society. There was a time, yes, we didn't even have air conditioning, right? So everybody was used to it, and that was the new normal. That's not the case today. I mean, I think we just need to reconcile that. One, society's changed. One is, you know, you could talk global warming, I suppose, too, but society has changed where that air conditioning is the new normal. And so when you're suddenly a student on the third floor of a building that is smoking hot, and I mean smoking hot, it just impacts the learning environment. And sometimes it's to the point we actually have to let school out. But letting school out is like the tip of the iceberg. There's 95% of the loss is underneath the water, right? And it's when it's just super hot and kids can't focus on learning.
I would just say that, you know, the when I was a kid thing, you know, you can't buy a car now without making it a special option to not have air conditioning. You can't, I mean, I don't know what percent of our houses in our community are air conditioned, but when a child goes from an air conditioned house to an air conditioned car or an air conditioned bus and they get dropped off at a hot as heck school, while their parents are sitting in air conditioned offices and air conditioned job places, I can tell you there's not a whole lot of learning going on in a 95-degree 8th period Spanish classroom at the junior high or a third floor classroom at a 100-year-old elementary building.
I think one of the other things that goes to the heart of your question is one of the big rollouts that's coming this fall. So we are going to be moving to a one-to-one environment for our junior high and our high school students starting in the start of the new school year here in 2017. So for those of us who grew up as digital immigrants where we didn't have computers in school and they became part of our lives, we now have a generation of kids that are coming through. They're the digital natives. This is what they've grown up with since they were little kids. And we are transitioning much of the work that used to be done pencil and paper into that electronic environment, and we're already seeing incredible gains for students in the classroom. And so we're really excited about that, but you can't just simply hand a Chromebook to a student and then expect that everything's going to work. There's an enormous amount of backroom that has to take place. That goes along with the infrastructure work that we're doing in the buildings. That's everything from the servers that provide the capacity for the kids. That's the wiring, and we're talking miles and miles of wiring, even in a small school, that allows us to have a very robust wireless network. So regardless of where kids are in the school, whether they're in the library, common space, in the classrooms, that they have access, ubiquitous access to wireless internet, so that those things that they're doing individually, those group projects they're working on collectively, the interaction between the students and the teachers happens seamlessly. Because absent that, we're going to see interruptions in instruction. So we're already seeing a significant change. I happen to have a couple of kids who are still in high school, and to watch the work that they're doing collectively, collaboratively with their kids. We talk about our students having the 4 C's. We want them to be, as Chris said, we want to be creative. We want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to be good communicators. We want them to be collaborative. So how do we set our learning environments up so that they do that? Well, part of that is the transition of the learning environment that we're going through physically that then creates the environment that allows them to succeed academically. And so from my standpoint, this transition is instrumental not just in the physical environment. The AC is so important as part of that, but also when we get ready for teaching and learning next fall, that's going to look very different than when we got ready for teaching and learning just 5 years ago. And it's a very exciting transformation for our kids, for our staff, for the community. It wouldn't be possible. It would not be possible for the work without the work that's already been done. So the things that have happened over the last 7 years to put this in place set the stage for what's next. And I think that this really is then our springboard. And we passed the general obligation bond, and that completes the promise that we made when we first went out to the community and asked people to participate in the Every Classroom campaign. So this is really fulfilling that promise.
Just 2 things I'd like to. So, if you go far enough back, the real nature of public education is to prepare our youth for jobs and employment and being responsible citizens. So whether it's our commitment to career and technical education or computers and technology or collaborative technology, this is what employers want today. This is we want to make sure our kids are ready to either go into higher education or go into the military or go into the trades. We have to keep up with the times because the times are changing. 5 years ago we didn't walk around with, or 10 years ago we didn't walk around with these in our pockets. This has become a critical part of our daily involvement and interactions with each other. I can't remember the other thing I was going to say. So, oh well.
I'm sure it was good.
That was great. It was awesome.
So I want to just
Huge.
pivot, huge. Want to pivot to a little bit different question. Chris, you commented on the cost for a property owner. And I just want to make sure that that's clearly understood. So you said that it's 93 cents per 1,000, right? So if you had a $100,000 house, and correct me if I don't have this right, it'd be something less than $50 a year for $100,000 of value. And obviously, if you had a $200,000 house, it'd be twice that.
That's right. No, that's exactly right. So,
And so for a property owner then who would see this as an addition to their property tax, how many years will that continue?
well, based on property valuation, I mean, the good news was you got the numbers exactly right? So it was 93 cents. It's like $4 per month.
You said math was important.
Exactly. Exactly. And so for how long? I mean, again, if you looked at the graph, at 15 years, we'd break back even to today.
Okay.
Now, you'll still be paying debt, right? So the bonds go out 20 years. But when I say break even, based on our property valuation growing, we'll break even in 15 years. Now, again, we're fortunate. So it's good problems to have. Let's talk a couple good problems to have. Enrollment growing is a good problem to have. Property valuations increasing is a good problem to have. And that's what helps us with our tax rate.
I know the math issue is going to be really crucial for people because you just said, okay, that's 93 cents per $1,000. So how does that work out to be about $4 a month? Couple really important things for people to remember. One is that there's a rollback value on property. And so you're not paying taxes on each $1,000 of the value of the house that you own. There's a rollback value, which is about 56%, and so you're going to have to take that into consideration. There's also a homestead credit value that's applied to it. So when you take those out and you think about the actual value of your property, not at what it's assessed, but what it's taxed at, it's substantially lower. And I think that's one of those mathematical transposition issues that people are struggling with a little bit. They're saying, okay, $1,000, 93 cents, how does that work out to be $50 a year? When I add that up on each $100,000, and those are two really important considerations that people do take into consideration: that rollback piece and that home credit piece.
So one thing that we are, again, that I'm just going to come back to, that we're blessed with here, is continuous growth. Our the total taxable property in the district continues to grow at 4.5% per year. And the way I try to explain that to people is that as the pie that is taxable property grows bigger, the individual slice that each residential and commercial property owner gets smaller. So the pie's bigger, your slice is smaller. So we tap into that growth. Historically, we've been about 4.5%. This is one of those things that when we talk about where the break even is, as we continue to grow, that helps us offset the individual property tax owner impact. And that's a definite plus. I did remember the other thing that I wanted to say is, because we talk about this $191 million that is the bond dependent. But what we have to remember is that we've done about $150 million worth of work in 4 years without a bond, and completed all of it on time, on budget, ahead of time, under budget. So, the point is that it's a 10-year plan, and I want people to remember that we have done $150 million worth of projects in 4 years' time. There's $190 million worth of projects to go. This is a huge, comprehensive, 30-plus facility plan, but it's hopefully going to get us to a point. I mean, this looks like we can finally stop talking about buildings. We can start talking about what happens in the buildings, and that's huge, because I think in the 3.5 years that Director Lynch and I have been sitting there, we spend so much time, and probably you remember this too, talking about the dollars and cents and so on and so forth. And you want to talk about the great things going on and the great programs we have. We want to make sure that we are focusing on what's going on in the classroom, and not making sure that we're getting rid of temporaries and building classrooms.
No, I think it's a great point. Demonstrated performance, right? So in 4 years, we've demonstrated the performance to stick to the plan, execute the plan on time, on budget. And that gives us the confidence that we can execute the next 6 years on time, on budget, and deliver the exact plan.
Are you aware, think about this, when you talk about dollar amount, Hampshire Auditorium, one building used 3 days a week, if I'm not mistaken, is about $177 million for that one building. We're doing 20-plus school renovations or constructions for $190 million, and those schools will be used every single day throughout the school year. To me, that's a no-brainer. So yeah, you can talk dollar amount. I'll be happy to talk dollar amount. I love it. It's advantageous to us to talk dollar amount.
So you guys have been out in the community talking about this. You're starting to get feedback from citizens, and I wonder, is there anything in particular that you've heard in your conversations with voters and constituents that you'd want to mention now and respond to, because you think it might be a question that other folks would have? Anything in particular come to mind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Brian just brought up, closing schools. Would the GO bond
Sure.
help us keep our schools open, or would it result in closing schools? And I think it's the same answer as, is it a blank check, or, if the bond's approved, we stick to the plan. I mean, if you're concerned about closing schools, then I would suggest, approving the bond is, one, it locks us into the plan, right? Current plan. And then two, again, it just drives the operational efficiencies that'll help us keep our schools open. Now, the other thing I'd say is, let's just take a school like Man. When you put $10 million of improvement into a school, I think we're hoping it's going to be around for the next 50 years, right? If not forever, but you know what I mean.
What is the plan specifically with Horace Mann? Because I've heard questions about obviously it's is it the oldest building in the district now? Or
Well, Longfellow and
certainly one of
Man are
them?
kind of right there,
Yeah.
like over 100.
And so I think it's just natural that the older buildings, folks wonder, what the future is for that building. So, and I hear questions about Man specifically, so
No,
what's
it's
the future?
It's a great question. So when you look at the schools we've been renovating recently, whether it's a Penn or a Twain or a Lucas, the kids stay at the school while we're doing the renovation. We put a 10-plex transitional schoolhouse there, so you think of it, kind of a big portable, but it's a very nice situation. But we do the renovations with the kids there. It's kind of the story. Longfellow, Man, and Lincoln are significant historical renovations where they're so intensive in the infrastructure of the school, we cannot keep the kids there. The students cannot be there. And that's why we're building Hoover East on this timing, right? So next year, Longfellow will go to school at Hoover East. We'll call it Longfellow while they're there, but they'll utilize that building and we'll do the complete renovation of Longfellow. Man and Lincoln are one more year out. So we'll do the exact same thing we're doing at Longfellow at Man and Lincoln. So the kids will go to Hoover East for that period, only because we cannot really get the renovations done. It's so extensive. It's what Steve talked about. It's when you're getting into the infrastructure, the electrical system, and you're just getting into the core of the school, we could not do this amount of construction with students in the building. So,
Is there any concern that those renovations, even with the kids going to Hoover East, would take longer than a year?
I'm going to say no. I mean, in that we've demonstrated the ability to do these things over time. Now, again, Longfellow will be our first historic renovation, and I think it's very important to be timely. Sometimes we get into, can you delay this decision or not? Well, I'd say no. I mean, we've demonstrated we need timely decisions, we need timely funding, we can get it done. But if there's delay in decisions or there's delay in funding, then I think you put at risk the timing.
So I always like, as a longtime member of the Iowa City community, I like to talk history. Just when we talk about our historical buildings, Man, Longfellow, even Lincoln. Lincoln's about a 90-year-old facility. Man and Longfellow are 100-year-old facilities. Man and Longfellow were built based on at that time a historic bond that passed in 1916. It was a huge amount. It was an unheard of amount. And those schools are still here 100 years later. So there's definitely a pay it forward approach to this. The second thing that I've heard is that we continue to build schools on the periphery and we're not investing in our historic neighborhoods. Well, that's not true. So when we're putting $12 million into a Longfellow or a Man or a Lincoln, we're investing in our North Side neighborhood, our Summit Street area of Iowa City, our Manville Heights area, the Peninsula area. I mean, these are all areas that we continue to reinvest in our schools there. And the last thing I'd say about history is that people who've been around here for a long time remember that West High opened with no football field and no auditorium. And I think it's critically important that while we repeat the history of the generosity of our community 100 years ago to approve a bond from 100 years ago, I don't want to repeat what happened in the late 60s when we opened West High without a complete facility. And passing the bond ensures that we do not repeat that history, because to this day, those scars still run deep, that for 25 years, and we've had so much growth in the last 20 years, people don't realize this, that West High did not have the facilities, and they had to engage in home football games over at City High and theater performances over at City High. That's inequitable for our students, that's inequitable for our teachers. I do not want to repeat that part of history, and that's a huge reason to support the bond.
And there's just to do it right the first time. Do it right the first time is always cheaper, usually. And that's really what we're trying to do. Now, the other thing, Tim, to your question, I think I'm just looking through our frequently asked questions. The other thing I'd probably just comment on, this current bond is very consistent with the Silo campaign, and it's very consistent with the RPS campaign. In fact, I have it in front of me here. But if people are willing, if you ever hear that, oh, this isn't what we voted for with Silo, or this isn't what we voted for RPS, I'm happy to sit down and come have that conversation, because it's completely consistent. And again, I think that's the message, Jack. We are sticking to the plan. We're keeping it simple. It's completely consistent. Let's get this done. So.
I'd say one of the things that I'm hearing is people are looking at it and they're saying, okay, I understand that this goes through 2023, but what happens after that? And I think we've got a couple of opportunities for us. One is to remember that the board has been revisiting this on a consistent basis. And so this isn't a static plan. So when that community committee came together back in 2012 and brought forward the first facility master plan, we are not now working with the same plan that they brought forward, in the sense that the board revisited it 2 years later. Some things had changed. We get demographic projections every couple of years. And so they took a look at how things were evolving in our 5 municipality metroplex area here and said, okay, we need to make some changes. And then the board just did that again, where they took a look at it and they said, okay, we've got some new demographic projections. We can see where housing is growing. What changes do we need to make in the plan to make sure that we are being responsive to that? The anticipation is that over the course of the next 2 years and 2 years and 2 years, the board's going to continue to do that. And so some of the questions that have come to me are, what about those projects that are going to come after those that you have planned right now over the course of the next 6 years, 5 years for us to implement? What happens with those things that we know are going to be stacked on top of that? And so there are a couple things. I'll fold all the way back to the beginning of the presentation when Chris was talking about legislative priorities. We continue to advocate at the state for the opportunity to extend SAVE. We know that those needs are not going to go away. Chris has talked about the continued growth in our student population. And if you looked at that one chart and you saw us moving out of those modular units and into brick and mortar schools, and we know that that's going to happen in 2023, if we get enrollment at the rate that it is projected now. If things increase over that time, we're going to be challenged to make sure that we have everyone in brick and mortar classrooms at that point in time. So this is going to continue to evolve. There will be continuing needs that get onto the list of what happens afterwards. The board already has that list. We've got an elementary school on there. We've got upgrades at a couple elementary schools that aren't on the plan as they exist right now. And so we continue to build that list out. We'll continue to monitor that. We'll continue to add items to that list. And then depending on what happens at the state level, that either allows us to access SAVE dollars for those. We might have to come back to the community at some point 5, 10 years from now and look for additional general obligation bonds to support those types of programs if there isn't state support for those. But we're not losing sight of the fact that this is the end of the line, that we know that there will continue to be an evolution of the needs in the district, and we'll continue to track that, and that'll continue to be a part of the facility master plan. And I think that the challenge there is to understand that the facility master plan is independent of the funding source. That plan continues to evolve. The funding source, whether it's SILO, SAVE, HEPL, or the general obligation bond, is what provides the support to make those things happen.
We have time for just a couple more questions, and the construction and opening of Liberty High School that's a big deal. In truth, there really aren't very many new high schools that get opened in the state of Iowa because obviously we're a population that is relatively stable. So bringing a new high school online is obviously a major thing for this district. And I want you to just talk a little bit about the transition to that. I know folks are continue to be interested in what's the impact on the existing high schools. So both West and City High, what impact is there? And then are there, as this thing gets closer, and Steve, you were talking about the construction process, and is it going to be ready? And what's that experience going to be like for families and kids when that opens in the fall?
Well, as we said, we're fortunate to have growth, so it's absolutely no doubt. In fact, when you look back at some of the debates we had maybe 7 years ago or 10 years ago, and you were talking trigger points and stuff like that, there's no doubt we have enough students to have 3 high schools, so let me just start with that. And I think your point's a good one, Tim, and I was going to make this point near the end, but Liberty is important for the Liberty students, but it's just as important for the West and City students, because we're really going to be able to bring those schools back into capacity, back where we'd really want them. We've really asked West and City to operate at like 130% of capacity, and it's not been ideal. And if you talk to any of the students, that hallways are jammed, you're eating lunch anywhere in the school, and you're just doing some suboptimal things. We're asking our staff to do things, move around rooms, and we're doing a lot of suboptimal things. So Liberty is just important to City and West students as it is to Liberty. Now, high level, I expect one of the biggest outcomes is going to, beyond what I just talked about, is there's going to be 50% more opportunity for all of our students. You know, you need to be a specialist today to make like show choir or make some of the competitive, or, you know, we got a lot of great kids sitting on the bench that could be starters in a lot of different sports. And I'm just excited about all of our kids are going to have 50% more opportunity just by opening up another high school to participate. And whether it's the arts or whether it's, you know, a competitive math club or whether it's sports, it's just a huge opportunity to increase participation. You know, the last thing I'll say is, you know, we are very supportive. It's a fundamental value in the district to have neighborhood schools. And we're just to the point where the growth is such that, you know, we need to have a neighborhood high school in the north part of the district. And I think it's going to make us stronger, having 3 highly competitive but yet equitable high schools. And that's what we expect. I said this in the when we talked academic outcomes. We have 2 high schools in the top 5. We expect now to have 3 high schools in the top 5. So, and we'll have high expectations for all 3 high schools. We'll expect them to be equitable, and we'll expect, you know, that good educational outcomes at all 3. So I'll let Steve get into the details of opening it up, but.
So we're really excited about it. We've been tracking through Power School enrollment. We've got a full component of freshmen and sophomores. So those are kids that live in that Liberty catchment area, and they'll be starting school there in the fall. We've also got some brave pioneers at the junior and the senior level who have decided that they would like to also come in and be part of those first 2 classes at Liberty High School. So we're going to start with about 700 students there. That means that the full benefit that Chris was describing isn't quite there at City at West, but it's really close. Those 2 schools will be about 1,700 next year. Over the course of the next 2 years, they'll come down in right size at about 1,500 students. That's going to be a huge plus for them. Classroom space has been tight but adequate, but where we've really struggled at both City and West are the common spaces for the kids, the library, as Chris said, the cafeteria. And so having those right-sized populations is really going to feel better there. Probably the best analogy of that is Wood Elementary School. Dramatically overcrowded, lots of pressure. Chris talked about it earlier, lots of adverse student behavior because you simply got them jammed into too small a space. Once we opened up Alexander Elementary School, literally overnight, the atmosphere at Wood Elementary School changed because the school was then right-sized, the right number of kids for the capacity of that building. That's now going to happen at City and West, and that's a huge win for the kids in both of those buildings because their school is going to have the number of students that the school is designed to accommodate. So that's a real plus for us. So we start out this fall. For those of you that don't know, it's the Liberty Lightning. The kids right now have really involved in the process. One of the things that they're designing, you got to get these things started early, is they're designing the crest that's gets used from everything from design elements to graduation rings and things like that. So the kids are working on that right now. We've had a really active student group that's helped us with everything from naming. They're the ones that came up with Lightning to logos and mascots and things like that. So that group of students has been super involved in that process. We've got a common theme now running with colors. So they picked the same colors that North Central has. So we'll have that purple, silver, and black theme running up through North Central and Liberty High School. So parents are very excited about that too. We've actually already started, and I think some people don't know that. We started with our current class of freshmen that are going to be sophomores there next year. They're already participating in some activities as Liberty Lightning. So whether it's through football, whether it's through girls volleyball, they're already participating as lightning bolts. So they're active in that arena. We wanted to do that because that gives the kids a sense of transition and ownership as they move on to the high school. So they've been really excited. I got to watch a lot of Liberty High School freshman boys basketball this year. So they're really wound up and ready to go for that transition. We'll welcome kids in at the start of the school year. One of the things that Tim and I were talking about beforehand was I know that a lot of parents and a lot of community members are really anxious to see what does the school look like. We're just about out of the hard hat phase there. So over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, we'll finally move into that phase where we can start to get community members in there so they can see it. I've been so very fortunate because I'm able to get out there every couple of weeks and watch that process unfold. But it's a very impressive building, a lot of great opportunities for kids and community out there. I talked to Tim earlier, we're in the process of staffing up. So whether they're transitions from inside the district or staff that we're hiring from outside the district, we are very aggressively going through and doing that recruitment and that hiring. We did bring the principal on last year, so Scott Kibbe is the principal at Liberty, and he's been the gentleman that's shepherding all of those move-in pieces so that we are ready to go when kids walk through the door. There have been a lot of other, just maybe mention one because for I think those of you that have high school students out there will recognize this. It's been a big transition for us, which I think is beneficial for the community as a whole. For years, we've had different numbering and naming systems for courses at City and West. For students that move back and forth between the two, sometimes there was some translation issues about what does this class mean here versus there. People who might have transferred colleges would recognize some of the challenges that come along with that. So as we moved into the new school, we've done things like sit down with the staff at both of the high schools and come up with a completely new numbering and naming system so that we've got consistency high school to high school, and we'll have that same consistency at Liberty. It's opened up some doors where both high schools have said, hey, you know what, we didn't offer that class here. We really like that. What if we brought that over here? Or we teach classes that are very similar, but we teach this component to it, you teach that component to it. Why is that happening? And how do we better align the work that we're doing so we can take the best of the things that are happening at City, best of the things that are happening at West, and bring them together to improve coursework overall for the district. So I think I would really emphasize the point that Chris made, that it's a great thing for the kids that are going to go to Liberty. It's a great thing for the community up there, but this is really a great thing for the district as a whole. We are seeing lots of other, sometimes unintended consequences, sometimes very intentional consequences that are going to make things better for all 9-12 students throughout the district and really for the community as a whole.
And we've had a transition committee in place for about the last 18 months, and that's where a lot of these ideas came from, and starting some of the sports and other clubs early. It's been outstanding. And the last thing I'll just say, Tim, hey, we recognize this is a huge change, right? It's a huge change for our students, but it's a huge change for our families, and I just want to say that we recognize that, and certainly we've had to make some hard decisions in terms of who goes where and all that good stuff, but I hope we've made those tough decisions, and we're, once we get everybody into their school next year, it's going to be the new normal, and it's going to be very exciting. But I do just want to recognize that it's a big change for a lot of our kids and students, and we've tried to help that to the degree we can. But at the end, again, you get some tough decisions you need to make them move on, and hopefully everybody's 2 or 3 years from now ecstatic with their new junior high and high school.
Based on this conversation that we've been having here for the last hour and a half, I suspect I could get you to talk all afternoon. But I want to invite you to make any additional comments that anything that we haven't touched on. But go ahead, Chris.
No, I just think it's a tremendously exciting time in our district, and our student outcomes are outstanding. I couldn't be prouder of our high school students that come out in the end, and whether that's academic performance or leadership, or they're just well prepared for what they're going to do next. But we can always do better. So, and I think that's where our strategic plan comes in. And what I feel the best about the last few years, and I hope continues to be in place over time, is the strategic plan focused on delivering our educational mission, getting real clear on the goals, which has been very enabling to the organization to get focused. And that's going to deliver better educational outcomes. And I think hopefully you saw early on, we are starting to see those gains. We are making both the tough decisions and, again, just getting focused on delivering educational outcomes. But it is, for all of our challenges, it is a tremendously exciting time to be in the Iowa City Community School District. And I think it's a tremendously exciting time to live in Iowa City area and Johnson County. With everything going on in the state and nationally, I think we are in a bubble here that when we look at it, we are very fortunate in what we have in this county, and the education system is one of them. And I hope we're all passionate about continuing that. And we'll need to do that via influencing, the state and federally, but there's a few things we control, and I hope the community will be supportive of the things we control.
So I could talk about it all afternoon. I frequently do. I get the chance to talk about the great things that are happening in our district, both here locally, at the state level. I just had an opportunity to present with President McStarcevich at the American Association of Community Colleges, because what we have at Kirkwood is truly a unique, one-of-a-kind opportunity across the country, and there are many others that are looking at the work we're doing there and trying to emulate that. And so there's so many things for us to be proud of. So maybe I'll just shift gears as I close out and tell people that one of the things that I said when I came here was it was a great professional opportunity for me because Iowa City is such a wonderful school district and has so many both challenges and opportunities for growth. But it was a real personal choice for me to make. I came here with a third and a sixth grader, and my sixth grader is going to graduate this year. And I tell people that the opportunities that he's had as a student to grow personally, emotionally, academically, I couldn't be more proud of what the system has done for him. I was just at Northwest Junior High. I had a staff listening post there this week. Both of my kids went through Northwest, so I had the chance to personally thank his teachers as he gets ready a couple months from now to walk across the stage. But I think in the end, the work that we do at the district level, at the building level, in the classrooms, really boils down to that dyad, that intersection between each student and their teacher, between each student and the other support staff and the people that help make their day flow smoothly throughout the district. And what happens at the end of that is what happens here in May, which is those kids walk across the stage and they move on to whatever's next in their life, whether they're going to go on to post-secondary, they're going to go into the trades, they're going to go into the service, whatever they're going to do. And our kids are so well positioned, and I know that theoretically, and I know that professionally because I see it when I'm out in the buildings, but I also know it when I sit at the dining room table. And it is such a cool thing to be a part of that process. I'm so proud that I've had the opportunity to do that. And so coming out and going on the stump for the general obligation bond is such an easy thing for me to do because I know the impact that it has for every family in the district.
So I want to thank both of you, Superintendent Murley and Board President Chris Lynch, for your presentation today and the time that you're devoting to something that we as an Iowa City area chamber think is critically important. As I said at the outset, we see a very, very close nexus between the vitality of our business community and the quality of education in the region, which of course begins with public schools, all the way up through, of course, our universities and community colleges as well. So appreciate the information you've brought to us. One thing, Chris, you mentioned is the engagement of citizens in our district. And I think you mentioned there was a forum when 400 people came to talk about the facilities plan. But one thing I think we've noticed as a community is that doesn't always translate to people going to vote. And I know from my own past experience that not a lot of people vote in school board elections. And the same can be true with other local issues, school and non-school related, whether it's to elect candidates or to vote on things like this bond issue. So I guess what we as a chamber would really encourage is go out and get the information. This is excellent information, but you can get so much more information. It's available as Mr. Lynch said on the school district website. And I know that if specific questions come up that can't be answered there, you can reach out to the school district and obtain that information. So be informed and then vote. This is an issue because it's a bond issue that requires a 60% approval rating. So it's very important that folks are engaged. Whether you're for it or against it, we really would encourage a high level of voter turnout for something that's this critically important for the community. So I want to thank you for coming today, and it's a rainy day as we're here, so I don't know that the rest of your afternoon will be so great, but if you're listening to this later, maybe your afternoon will be sunny. So thank you.
Thank you.